Sometimes we go to places and we get some looks like they don't understand.
I mean, one woman said, either you're not the mom or the dad is awful black.
I was just so shocked at first because no one had been so forward and offensive to us. I mean, we've always had the stares or the little questions, but that was probably the hardest one I ever came up on. And I didn't say anything at first.
It doesn't matter who the kid is that you're fostering or adopting. They've got things that they are dealing with. And if they're going to become a part of your family, then you've got to be there to deal with it with them. So if racism is that, then you've got to deal with racism.
But we didn't understand racism like we do now. Most white people don't.
I don't think he actually knew any white people in Detroit before he moved here. And so he had to learn the ways of white people. And then you have to have very frank conversations about what are you willing to trade to learn how to function in a white world in a way that's going to get you to your goals, but not crush your soul.
I think there's always some concern of being parent to a black girl and her having two white gay dads. This is America that we're in, and that could be a little bit scary sometimes. Our daughter doesn't quite understand racism at this point. It already breaks our heart that someday she will.
We were able to raise Tommy when we lived in Milwaukee and really have nice diversity around us in our community and nice diversity in his school. And we've talked about fostering or parenting since we've been in our community now, and we know what the need is. And we've had to talk out loud about, we can't bring a kid here. We can't bring a black or brown kid to this subdivision, to this school system, to this community. That would not be fair to them.
We chose not to move out of our community. When you're going into adoption, they're coming into your home, making sure that you have safety and all that kind of stuff. Maybe when they were a little older, it would have been nice to live in a community and school district that was more supportive.
At least like 15 times a day, I get called the N-word at school. I started getting used to it. Like, it's really hard to kind of block it out, but it gets easier over time because I know it's gonna happen, so I know they're gonna say it.
Part of our parenting journey was learning how to support when the kids would come home from school and say, someone called me this. I told the principal that this was said to me and they didn't do anything about it. So I got mad and I'm the one who's suspended.
People would assume like that I would be a person who would sell drugs and ask if I could deal stuff for them in like a playful way, because they assumed that because I was black that I would do criminal stuff. I tell them that I've never done that and I never will, but they don't listen. They just keep on playing the jokes when people tell them not to say that stuff.
It's normally our friends that say that to us, and they say it as jokes. To us, it's not, and I think it's hard to explain to them because it's kind of almost embarrassing, I would say, to show them that it does hurt us, but I think because we don't want to lose them as friends.
So there was a group of 4 boys, 3 were Caucasian, and our son was the only African American, and they were taking rubber bands and snapping them on their wrists.
Snapping each other.
Well, you're right. But our son was suspended from school for a week because all the 3 boys that were white had marks on their wrist. You couldn't see the marks on our son's wrist. So the teacher assumed that Jordan was the one that was doing this. The dean of students never interviewed him about it. He was just suspended.
My grandpa, he lived in that time, My mom told me that he didn't believe that people of color like us he didn't understand. And once I was the firstborn, and once he saw me, my mom told me that once he saw us, we changed him. He was a totally different person. He loved us.
You know, there's teenagers that are already experiencing the oppression and the racism every single day. That's some pretty heavy trauma for a 13-year-old to deal with. No matter, that's a lot.
I was the one that taught him to drive. I was the one to literally say, no matter what happens, yes sir, no sir, hands on the wheel, da 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 da. And so it's this whole parenting and having to tell your kid how awful the world can be, and that it's never, ever, ever gonna be fair, or strike a balance with things that are very much not okay.
We were coming up with a contract for video games, and we got to a sticking point in the negotiation, and one of our kids just got really angry, and he stood up and he yelled, "This is all about white power." And we were just like, what's going on, bud? Where did that come from? And it was, you know, I was taken away from my parents by a white worker. I have white teachers telling me what to do all the time. I have white principals who don't understand me. I have a white judge who says I can't go back to my family. And then they put me in your house. And you guys want to tell me what to do. We had to sort through, okay, you know, I see what you're saying here. What if I would have walked into that room and started yelling at him? I'm not a racist, why are you calling? You know, what if I had done that? We have to be willing to grapple with those tough issues with him and within our family in order to be a home where he can heal.
If you have a child that is a person of color and you're not, I think that there is some sort of responsibility to ensure that they're involved in their culture. But I think it goes deeper than that, because I think that there's going to be struggles along their way that we have to do our best to prepare them for. It's not pretty and it's not fun, but we have to understand it first in order to be able to help them navigate through that when they do experience it.
We did take our daughter to a Black Lives Matter march, and she didn't understand why we were going. And then she was listening to the people talk. She says, that's not fair. She's my fourth child, and I've never had to experience something like that. That's why it's important that it's our responsibility to make sure that we understand what they're going to experience further in life. We've never had to, other than, you know, random people driving by in a car calling us a faggot out their window. That's few and far between compared to someone seeing the color of her skin every second of the day.
People at my school, like, we would be being taught about slavery, and they would look at me because I was the only black person in my class.
Yeah, that's a big one. Slavery units in school, everyone would always like stare at you and be like, oh, those are your ancestors. Yeah, but we had nothing to do with that. And did you ever have that with slavery units?
Yeah. Sometimes a teacher will put you on the spot and be like, so how does this make you feel, Jordan, about like in front of the entire class when we're talking about slavery and stuff. I didn't know what to say, because I was like, I can't believe you just asked me that in front of everyone.
We have white privilege. I mean, me as a white male, I have been able to rise into executive positions. I've been able to walk down the street and not be fearful of anything, not being fearful of people even stereotyping me and that sort of thing. And with one of our children in particular, he said to me, Dad, you're not gonna understand how I feel. Their background has really had to push and fight to be where they are, but they should be able to be so much further.
Everybody wants to kid themselves about, you know, racism not being a problem, and we don't see color, and can't we all just get along? And the truth of the matter is every time we deny the reality of the world that we are living in, we do ourselves a disservice, we do our kids a disservice.
There have been times where we've walked into our room and said, what did you think? This is what I thought. Is that a racist thing to think? And we've had to grapple with that. And that's good. It's good for us to have to grapple with that. When we're raising children of color, we're not in a position to say, I'll think about that later, you know?
We're almost, in a sense, backtracking a little bit with our older kids. and being like, maybe we didn't have enough conversations about racism because they're white and that's not fair. We should have. So we're having those conversations now, and especially just to be a human being, but also because your sister, it's about her, it's about the whole world, right? So
not only black people are going through this problem, other people are racist to other races. It could be your children too. And you don't bother to ask about it because you're scared to, and you don't want any conflicts to come up with you and your children.
There's always going to be conflict between people in this world, but I think the most important thing is to make it clear in the beginning that it's a topic that you shouldn't be scared or embarrassed to talk about. I feel like you should make it a comfortable thing that should want to be shared daily or whenever you feel like it.
There's nothing really you can say that they won't know that you're trying to help. So then if you bring it up, most likely they'll talk to you about it because they want to have that relationship with you and they want to be able to talk to you about it. They just don't necessarily know how to bring it up.
Just because you haven't adopted them yet or you're fostering them, you are their parents from right now.
Even if they're not blood, the love is always gonna be there.